Hey everyone, welcome back to the Superhero Show. Daniel and Chris here, and sorry if you live in America, but this week we're going to talk about X-Men Apocalypse, which is out in most of the world. I'm sorry it's been delayed in America.
It's not your fault, Dan.
Take it up with your local Fox representative.
I don't know why you're apologizing. It's not your fault.
I just apologise for everything.
It's not your fault.
Okay, it's not my fault. Good. But we are going to talk about X-Men Apocalypse in spoilerific detail.
Yeah.
So if you've not watched the movie, come back later.
Yep.
If you don't care, enjoy. So first off, the overarching question, what are your general impressions? Good or bad?
Well, you reviewed it,
Yes.
didn't you, for the site? And what did you give it?
Seven.
Seven.
Well, we rate on a 100-point scale, which
yeah.
is nuts. But it's just good, I thought.
Yeah.
I wanted to put it higher than Batman v Superman because I think it is better than that. It's
Agreed.
It's cogent. It's just.
How much did Marvel pay you to say that?
It's just unexceptional. It feels like a superhero movie from 10 years ago. It doesn't do anything interesting, but it's not badly made. It's just flat.
It felt to me like they were building to a crescendo with this trilogy. You know, the 60s, 70s, 80s, First Class, Days of Future Past, and this one. And then they just changed their mind at the last minute.
Yeah.
And so we suddenly get a film that felt slightly disconnected to the other two, where the best stuff in the first two movies, in my opinion, was McAvoy and Fassbender.
Absolutely.
And they barely get a scene together in this film.
Well, in the first two movies, I always thought this was the trilogy of their friendship, and how it formed, how it broke apart, and I thought this was going to be the aftermath, or how they get worlds apart. Barely together. And each of those first two movies, First Class and Days of Future Past, there's two great scenes, one in each of those movies. The first one when they're training, and he reaches into his memories of finds that happy memory of young Magneto lighting the menorah, and he's able to turn that satellite miles away. And then the second movie is on the plane when he's like, "You abandoned me."
Yeah.
It's a brilliant scene. Two awesome actors in these iconic roles going at it. Nothing in this movie.
And I felt like the best stuff was the early stuff with Magneto, with his wife and his kid. It was very powerful and moving and intense. And then we kind of lost him, and we lost the film a little bit, I think, at that point. I still think he's the best thing in those films. And it's, Jennifer Lawrence is not far off the biggest movie star in the world, and so they have increased her role. And yet she felt, to me, a bit like she was sleepwalking through this film. Yeah. And, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's been, talk that she didn't want to wear the blue makeup, and so it really didn't make sense for her character to not wear the blue makeup. And yet, for the most of the film, I didn't think her character followed through on where she was at in the first two movies.
There were a lot of abandoned arcs.
Yeah.
Because, I said this in the review, it's this is a handover movie. It's not a culmination of what went before. Mm-hmm. They want to get this new cast up and running so they can make maybe a trilogy in the 90s, so just get all that stuff up and running. They can redo Cyclops, Storm and all that, the really iconic characters. Because also the X-Men are not a thing, so it ends with the X-Men now being a thing. There's a team of X-Men also.
Yeah, well they tell us a few times though they're going to be a thing. They talk about it a lot, but
the huge amount of time in First Class and Days of Future Past exploring the different viewpoints of Beast and Mystique, and the fact that she's always hid her true identity when she grew up with Charles. Magneto says you don't need to hide, and then like you said, that all evaporates in this movie. And because it's almost fixated on introducing lots of new stuff.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of new characters in this movie. So maybe we should go through them and see what we think of them.
Okay.
You're not a fan of New Jean Grey?
No, I don't think that girl's particularly good actress, so I didn't think she nailed that role. Psylocke was the one I didn't like. I thought that was a really underwritten character. I didn't know what she was at. I didn't know what her power was.
I don't know if it could be underwritten if it's not written.
I didn't know. I didn't get a sense of what her powers was, what she was up to, where she was coming from, and they kind of set her up at the end of the film as she's off, and she'll be villainous in the next one. I'm like, I don't really care. You've really brought nothing to this.
Yeah.
I think Apocalypse is the big one though, because we've talked a lot on this show about a good superhero movie needs a great villain, and we were very hopeful about this one. He's a really interesting character, or at least we thought he was. But for me, on film, he was quite dull.
He's dull, I don't really know what he wants to do.
What's the plan?
That's the thing. There is no clear plan.
Wipe everyone out and start again.
Well, that's what he makes a lot of speeches and pronouncements of building a better world, and he's like, you're worshipping false idols. And there's a scene midway through the movie where he launches all the nuclear weapons on Earth. They go into the sky and they blow up. And then what? I don't.
Yeah.
You could turn them on, and then he recruits these 4 mutants, these horsemen, to destroy the cities. But he never articulates what he really wants to build in its place. And it's like, and you never actually see him do that many villainous things, really.
No.
He's using people. He's been villainous by proxy.
He sucks people into walls.
He does do
which
that.
is a very interesting thing to see, because I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
But then he does it a few times, and I'm like, okay, so this is the power, is sucking people into walls.
But also the people he kills are quite like a kind of villainous people anyway. So it's like he doesn't do anything to good people. And at the end of the movie, when cities across the world are being destroyed, you don't get a sense that everyday people are being hurt. You see these shots of like Sydney being destroyed in New York.
Yeah.
There's not even insert shots of people screaming. So it feels like the X-Men are very disconnected from the rest of the world. And I think this movie as well feels very disconnected from its time period, even though it's set in the 80s. Like, I love the 70s stuff they did in Days of Future Past. 60s was awesome in First Class. The fact that they tied the finale into a real-world historical event with the Cuban Missile Crisis, this could be, like, apart from leggings and mullets aside, could be any time, really.
Yep, agreed. And just going back to Apocalypse, we are big Oscar Isaac fans.
Oh, he's brilliant.
But when you bury him under makeup and change his voice, I thought he was just lost. I thought he was a very dull villain. And then comparing him to Magneto, who's been the kind of villain for all of these films, so much more interesting and nuanced.
Well,
I found him a bit bland.
Well, it's actually the finale of the movie. It doesn't know who it wants to focus on, because you've got Apocalypse should be the focus of that end sequence, but Magneto's more interesting in that final sequence. And every time it cuts back to Apocalypse, well, can we go focus on him more?
And they really build up to the Quicksilver father thing, and then I've not even spoken to you about this. He doesn't do it, and I don't know why he doesn't do it. And it's made out to be this big moment, and then it doesn't really happen.
I don't know why you set that up and then the payoff,
follow through.
Because at the end, when he's like, he's not even brainwashed, he's just destroying the world because he's in pain. And he's in that kind of sphere that he's created for himself, that force field. And he has the opportunities to say it, and you feel like that would be a cool moment to say, you're my father, to break him out of that mindset. But he doesn't. He goes, "Oh, I'm here for family too."
But did you get a sense of why he didn't do it? Like,
no, I don't know what the motivation. Like, the reason you've gone, like, it's weird that he's been in his mum's basement for 10 years doing nothing.
Yeah, and
when a big character trait, nobody's aged. When a big character trait is him being impatient and irascible, and he enters the fray because he wants to connect with his father. Yeah. So I don't know why he doesn't.
That said,
awkward. It is awkward telling someone their father when he's destroying the planet.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, these are things you have to do in a superhero movie. He's still great though, isn't he, Quicksilver? Like,
yeah, he's still the best scene in the movie.
Best scene in the movie, yeah.
I think it is the best scene.
But
in the movie.
not as good as the best scene of the last movie that he had. But it's still really good.
Yeah, because it's like the Daredevil fight sequence. Like, season 1, awesome. It's like that. You've got to make it bigger and better, and they do make it bigger. It's just obviously lose some of that impact, but cool song choice, Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics. Like, the moment that song starts playing and he turns up, I was just like, awesome, I'm going to enjoy the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did, it's brilliant. And there's a French bulldog eating pizza in that sequence.
What else did you like then? Let's do some positives.
I liked Storm, the little that she's in the movie.
Yeah, that girl's good, isn't she?
I think Cyclops is good. Like, that character has a lot of potential. Like, if they're going back and redoing those characters we saw 16 years ago, Cyclops is one of the characters they didn't really tap into. Awesome stuff to explore there. Same with Storm. And if they are doing the kind of Cable storyline and some other stuff that looks like it might be set in motion, Cyclops is going to be a really pivotal character for a lot of that stuff. So it's cool they've got a good actor in that role, and What
other stuff are they setting in motion, Daniel?
So should we talk about the end credits?
Yes, I think we should. We're doing
Okay,
a
so
Spoilercast.
the end credit sequence implies that Mr. Sinister exists in this universe.
And we haven't seen this yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
But Gav saw
went
it.
and saw the movie the day it came out, and we've put a video on site.
Yeah. Because they
they
didn't put it on the version that you saw and the version that I saw.
No, so it's at the Weapon X facility. There's a shady dude who is collecting blood samples,
Right,
And
yeah.
he collects a blood sample, presumably of Wolverine's, has his genome in it, and he puts it in a briefcase that says Essex Corp.
Yeah.
Which, applies Nathaniel Essex exists, and he is Mr. Sinister. So I think they're setting up this kind of big villain who can play across multiple X-Men movies.
Yeah.
So be a villain in Deadpool, Gambit, Wolverine, and the X-Men universe. So that's cool. Like, I think Fox probably want their Thanos. They want their dark side.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool way to go. And if the stuff with Cyclops happens is Nathaniel Essex clones a version of Jean Grey, tricks Cyclops into having a baby with her. That baby ends up being Cable.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't think they do exactly that. But
Yeah.
a variation on it.
Yeah. Good knowledge. That's why
Yeah.
we pay you the big bucks.
Who does? Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel too. Anything else to add? I'm looking at my notes that I made. I thought there were too many characters that weren't very well serviced. I was vague on some new characters' powers. Doesn't really well explain. I thought there were too many flashbacks to better scenes in
First
previous
Class.
films. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing quite matches up to that. And also, when the movie ends and they're in the danger room and you see the new lineup of X-Men,
Yeah.
I just get, like, part of me is just like, let's just watch. I would have preferred that movie. I wanted a conclusion to Fassbender and McAvoy's trilogy.
Yeah.
And then just start with that. That would have been awesome.
I mean, it's fairly enjoyable and likeable, but we both saw it 2 weeks ago now, I think, and I've largely forgotten it. I had to. That's why I had to
Yeah.
make some notes. I largely forgot most of it, and that's a really bad sign, I think.
Yeah.
This won't be one I'll ever go back to, I don't think. Whereas whenever
This
First
is
Class
fun.
is on telly, I tend to keep watching it, and X2, but yeah.
Maybe this is a bigger discussion, but just slightly. First Class is the best X-Men film.
That sounds like a show to me.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we should get some feedback on
Yeah,
it.
let us know. superheroeshow@ign.com.
Yeah.
Nice segue to this week's feedback, Chris.
Yeah, shall I kick off?
Yeah.
I've got Aaron Davis from New Zealand. We got some really international ones this week. And he's talking about Apocalypse. He says, X-Men Apocalypse was all right, but this is very strange. I don't feel any need to ever see it again.
Oh, good.
Timely.
You stealing your points from
Sorry,
the
Aaron,
feedback.
I've literally stolen this from you. So he's given bullet points, as a few people have whilst we asked for it, which I really like. He says, the scene with Quicksilver saving everyone from the explosion felt out of place following the dark, serious tone of Havoc dying and the Apocalypse encounter. Mystique only uses her powers for any benefit twice, once to rescue Angel and then to be Psylocke and slit Apocalypse's throat. Yet she is presented as the star of the movie. She talks so much, and Psylocke says about 3 lines total in the whole movie. I really don't get Magneto's motivation. It might be there with his daughter's death, but I just don't get how it led to what happened. Is it just me? And this movie really proves just how well Civil War managed a large ensemble cast.
Absolutely. And, they spent a lot of time with a lot of these characters.
Yeah.
Like, obviously not as many films as Marvel has with all those characters, but he doesn't have the payoff in the same way. He doesn't manage those old characters with as much skill as Civil War does.
Yeah.
This is talking about international. Dan Brooks from Blackpool. He says, whilst I didn't think about the Quicksilver Magneto line until you pointed it out, it was the Wolverine reveal that really annoyed me. There's absolutely no need to include this in a trailer. This film is the third in the trilogy, so a lot of people will already be going to see it regardless of the trailer, and the reveal of Wolverine is unlikely to convince anyone who isn't a fan of other X-Men films to go and see it. The moment should have been left as a surprise in the movie. I thought the BVS trailer with Doomsday was atrocious. We all knew that they would end up teaming together to fight someone or something. But when your film is called BVS, why highlight that in the trailer? So Dan is also following on to a point where we talked about, do trailers spoil too much?
I'll say something there. So Dan's saying that they shouldn't have included the Wolverine scene in the trailer. I'll go one further and say they shouldn't have included the Wolverine scene in the film. And then not have a moment straight after where one of the characters says, well, we won't be seeing that bloke again. Word to that effect. I'm paraphrasing.
Also, did you not think in that scene was quite...
It's cool. It's really cool, but it's like...
it's kind of cool to see him in the
really
Weapon X
tagged
gear,
on.
but also a bit weird where, like, little Jean Grey's looking at him and it's like, eventually he's going to really fancy you. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
I like that kind of thing, though. That's the one bit I did like. Paul Mather writes and says, as well as everyone, I absolutely love Civil War, so much so that I saw it twice within 36 hours.
Christ.
He says, I could go into depth about the good and bad about the film, but wanted my letter to be read out, so I thought I'd share what I found most interesting about the film. But then he goes on to write for too long, and so it is genuinely too much depth, Paul, so I'm really sorry. But it has been read out, so...
Cheers.
Thumbs up.
This is good. This guy knows, Bruce, Ottawa, Canada. Per your feedback, resending in bullet point format. Cheers, Bruce. He's going out to outline, like, kind of, is Captain America a better Superman than Superman? Obviously, I'm not referring to his powers, but rather to his character and what he stands for. Arguments for Cap, bullet points. He stands up for the little guy. He tries to
like dwarves.
He tries to do what he believes is right. He doesn't and won't compromise these standards. On top of all that, he is humble. Arguments against Man of Steel. He is little, if any, of the above. He is selfish. Even his own mother tells him he doesn't owe humanity anything, straight up contradicting his dad.
Is that it?
Yeah. I do like the idea that Martha hated Jonathan. I'm glad he died.
So I've suggested to Dan the other day doing a show based off of this email saying, is Captain America the new Superman? But I'm also scared it's going to piss everyone off.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a good? I think it's a really. I think it's a great email, and I think it's a really interesting conversation. That this Captain America is Christopher Reeve Superman on screen now.
He's that for a new generation. Absolutely.
And Man of Steel is something different now.
Oh, yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I think that's a really good argument. Like, he's a figure of hope. Like.
Don't say too much because we could spin this into a potential show.
Just think about how much I love Christopher Reeve.
Christopher Reeve. But tell us if you don't want it and then we won't do it. This is from Jonathan Bean, who says, hello. Did you hear news about the possible name change for Avengers Infinity War? If this is true, I think the perfect name would be Avengers... Sorry, I think the perfect name would be Avengers Assemble. What do you think? Daniel, do you want to talk about that?
That sounds good, doesn't it?
There's a problem, isn't there? Which Jonathan, I'm guessing, doesn't live in England.
Yeah, or he's been cheeky. So in the UK, when the first Avengers movie came out, it was called Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
No one's called it Avengers Assemble.
We had to. Every time I bloody wrote about it on the site, I'd get an email from
Disney UK going, it's called Avengers Assemble. Is it now?
Yeah.
Because of the existence of
the TV show.
And the Avengers movie.
Really good. Check it out. We should do a show on the Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Sean Connery, Uma Thurman, Ralph Fiennes, Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard, yeah.
It's an absolute classic.
Is he like the weatherman? Is he Scottish, isn't it?
No, Sean Connery controls the weather in it.
Right, okay.
That's his villainous plan, is to control the weather. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. But yeah, unfortunately, Jonathan, it's already been called Avengers Assemble in the UK, so they can't do that. I've got one from Connor Davison who says, I love Civil War, but I wonder, do you think the teams were truly evenly matched? Also, what way do you think the airport scene would have worked if Disney didn't get Spider-Man in time? The teams would have been 6 against 5, or does Hawkeye really count?
Oh, Hawkeye. Imagine being Renner. That's probably pretty good.
Well, you are Renner, so
not
he
Renner.
looks like Renner, doesn't he? He looks like Renner.
Are the teams evenly matched? Yeah, like,
it's hard to call. I didn't even think about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't count them, and I didn't think... Because it was a means to an end, wasn't it? It wasn't really
it's
about...
It's more like... Because it's not a real... Like, it is a fight, but it's not a fight to the death.
Yeah.
It's more like they're playing Bulldogs Across or something. Because they're on that side of the airport. They're on that side.
Are you talking about British Bulldogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's not Bulldogs Across then.
Well, it depends. There's regional differences. They just need to get to that side of the airport, and they're going to stop them.
Google it if you're in America.
Yeah. Okay, Navarre has written in, I hope I've pronounced that right. So during the midweek show this week, you responded to a fan letter that wondered how much better Black Panther's characterization was before the deal with Sony for Spider-Man. The Russos have said that Spider-Man was a part of the film from the beginning. Then Marvel told them to come up with a plan B in case the deal with Sony didn't go through, and they didn't even have a plan B. They just hoped like hell the deal would go through. He sent us a link to the story as well. So all the talk about Spider-Man stealing from T'Challa was and is still pretty misguided. Personally, I think Black Panther's characterization was stronger in Civil War than Peter's.
So, reason I've included that this week is that I think PR is a strong weapon in a movie maker's arsenal. Yeah. And I think you can easily write a narrative about something post-release that might not be true, and I wouldn't believe that story.
Also, I've heard contradictory. I've heard the screenwriters talking about how they had different versions of the script, like sliding the roles up and down, and it's like the role was always scalable.
Yeah. Just because they say Spider-Man was always in the script doesn't mean he was always in the script.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
You're saying people... Why?
No, I like the Russos. I'm just saying, well, he called us misguided, Dan.
Yeah.
Sam Ashby doesn't call us misguided. He says, I was thinking whilst watching your show about how you have very rarely discussed the DC television universe and thought this might be a good thing for you to touch upon, especially with The Flash and Arrow having their respective finales next week. The main points I think are important to consider are these. Would it have been worth DC connected these to the film universe? And as it isn't connected, what will that mean for characters such as Barry Allen that are appearing in both universes?
What does it mean for them? It's confusing.
Yes.
It is confusing for a wider mainstream audience. If you're watching the show, that doesn't apply to you. You know, and you're a fan of this stuff. As much as I'd love them to do kind of a weird multiverse thing, they're never going to do it. It's just a logistical, contractual nightmare. It's just not going to happen. As cool as it would be in an ideal world, it just won't happen. I think it will be confusing, but
yeah,
you just have to deal with it.
We like the DC shows, though, don't we?
I think Flash is incredible.
Yeah, I watched the first season and I kind of lost track of the second, so I need to catch up.
I'm just going to binge it.
Yeah, me too.
I've watched like the first half of the second season.
But with Kevin Smith on this one, in that he's a great Flash man. It's a shame he's not going to get to interact with these characters. Or maybe he's better off not interacting with them. Oh, Marvel paid me to say that. You're up.
This is from Luke. He wanted to ask, do we watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And if not, why?
Great question.
I think we've both bailed.
So
you bailed later.
I watched the first season. Are they on season 3 now?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the second season, and I watched the third season till halfway through, and I bailed, as you said, and I said that on Twitter, and loads of people said, oh no, this one's really good, but I was completely bored. I'll probably watch the finale, but I've just felt like they were going through the motions a little bit. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just...
The average.
There's too much good TV.
It's interesting.
We can't watch everything. It's really hard, isn't it?
The main actress, and I can't remember her name, she was speaking at a Comic-Con recently where she kind of called out Marvel Studios a little bit, because somebody asked her, it was like, oh, would you like your characters to be in the movies or them to link up more? And she just went, I love it. Marvel like to say it's all connected, but it's not really. Yeah. Like, even though it kind of happens in continuity, there's no real internal conversations going on. But that probably links back to the fact that it's really hard to sync up all those things. And they've even said that with the Netflix stuff recently. The screenwriter's like, it moves at a very different pace, that we don't know where everything's gonna kind of be.
But
so it's kind of siloed.
It is interesting, isn't it, that Inhumans got cancelled and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is now an Inhumans TV show. More TV, it's from Mark Willis, who says, as requested, short and to the point. Unless I've missed it, you've not discussed or mentioned the fact that Netflix has picked up a full season of Berthnall's definitive Punisher. Are you as excited as I am? And that's from Leicester. Yes.
Very excited.
But can the whole series be him fighting in a prison corridor?
It's a really long shot.
Yeah.
I really want it to be, just do 6 episodes. Do 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
I don't think...
One revenge storyline.
Yeah, just a short, like, a mini-series. That'd be great. I don't know...
We did a show about Punisher plotlines we want them to explore.
Yeah, and, like, he's obviously brilliant in that role. I don't know if he can be the main character for a 13-episode, 13-hour-long series. Like, spending a lot of time with that one character.
Pretty grim.
It's pretty grim, but, like, for 4 hours, brilliant.
Yeah, but, you know, you spend a lot of time with House of Cards and...
But maybe he'll get his own, like, Foggy. Like a wacky dude with a satchel.
Cast Ned Beatty.
Final email is from Tim Newton-Howes. Tim from Melbourne. He's saying... I'm going to go to his second question. Which of these new superhero shows are you most excited for?
Yes, great question.
Luke Cage, Preacher, Punisher, Krypton.
I would say Preacher. And we can probably trail our next show because we've seen the pilot, haven't we?
Yes, so on the next show, it's dropping on Tuesday next week, we're going to discuss the first episode of Preacher, which you'll be able to have watched by then.
So yeah, we'll go into detail then, because actually I was slightly more excited about Preacher before I saw the first episode.
Oh.
But I'm still... It's the most interesting story, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm probably out of those... I'm probably most excited about a Punisher series.
Sure. It's a very valid answer. And I'm least excited about Krypton. Massively unexcited about Krypton.
Awesome. So if you want to send us more feedback, how do they do that, Chris?
No idea.
superhero@ign.com. And until next week, for all of your superhero needs, stay right here on IGN or YouTube.